Now let's all be honest, the first time we opened up Marvel Rivals, we probably picked Punisher, as he was a rather straightforward character. But now, Punisher just went from solid to savage. With tighter accuracy, more bullets in the mag, and a serious damage boost, he's packing way more heat than most players actually realize. And in this guide or masterclass, I'm breaking it all down. We're talking about certain breakpoints, updated damage numbers, and how these buffs completely change the way you should be playing him. And as well, we're going to be talking about play styles, counters, and some pro level play to give you a better understanding of how to play this character like a pro. He's also the anchor of a powerful new team up, giving him bonus damage and extra health, and making him a true menace in mid-range duels. So whether you're a casual or a comp grinder, this guide or masterclass will give you everything you need to know to master the new Punisher and dominate your lobbies with relentless pressure. Make sure to like the video if you like it, subscribe if you're new. At 20,000 subscribers, we're doing a giveaway, so make sure to stay tuned. But without further ado, let's dive straight into the video. So when we look at Punisher's primary weapon, or the assault rifle, and we look at the patch notes, we see that his magazine size increased from 30 to 40 rounds, and his damage was from 18 damage per bullet to 19.95 with the team up bonus. The accuracy was also buffed, so they reduced the bullet spread during sustained fire. Now, if you don't care about all those fancy numbers, that's completely fine. What does this mean for you? Well, it means three different things. The first one is more pressure. You can sustain fire longer before reloading because you have more rounds in your magazine. The second one is that you get more DPS. Each bullet now hits harder. Small buffs stack quickly over time. And lastly, more precision. Your shots stay tighter on target, especially during extended fights, which is certainly true, especially when you look at it up close in the practice range. So when you look at the TTK analysis, or time to kill, here is a quick little rundown. When you're in close range with Punisher, that be about 20 meters or less, and you're using his assault rifle, to the body, it'll be 19.95 damage, so the TTK is about 1.2 seconds, and that's of course if all of the shots in your magazine are hitting the target. For headshots, you'll be doing a 39.9 damage in that 20 meter range with a TTK of 0.6. That means if you're landing all headshots within 20 meters, in about 0.6 seconds, that should be elimination. Now when we look at mid-range, give or take about 30 meters, there's a 85% damage fall off. Basically, at this range, you'll be shooting the body for about 17 damage, which equates to TTK for about 1.4 seconds, which is 0.2 seconds off of the close range. Then when we look at headshot, we have 34 damage per headshot, which equates to a TTK of about 0.7 seconds, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but there is some difference. Then at long range, which is greater than or equal to about 40 meters, you have 70% damage fall off. So at the body, you'll be doing 14 damage, which is a TTK of 1.7. And for headshots, you'll be doing 28 damage, which is a TTK of 0.8 seconds, which is a pretty big difference. So why exactly does this matter to you, the player? Well, basically, this is this reassuring or tell you exactly why he shines in close to mid-range combat. The accuracy and magazine buffs keep his pressure up longer than ever, even as enemies disengage or fly around. That's why you're seeing him played a ton in Marvel Rivals Ignite, and just in general Marvel Rivals Ranked or even Quick Play. Now I'm gonna spit a whole bunch of numbers to you, and that's when we're talking about the DPS and damage per magazine. So before, his DPS to the body was 180 damage, so a total magazine damage of 540. And after the changes, or after the buffs, the DPS for the body was 199.5, and the DPS, or the damage per second to the head, was 399 now, with a total magazine damage of 798. That's an 11% DPS increase and a 47% boost in the magazine damage, which is absolutely insane. Now you might be wondering, cool, but what do all these numbers mean? Well, basically, you can now one-clip 300 HP tanks like Penny Parker, Doctor Strange, or Magneto with just body shots. The extra bullet and tighter spread gives you more uptime, more pressure, and more clutch potential, especially in extended duels. Now let's talk about the Punisher's secondary weapon, which is Deliverance, aka the shotgun. So Deliverance fires 14 pellets at 10.5 damage each, so 147 base body damage, which is absolutely insane. Then if you were to land a headshot, that's 294 damage, or 21 damage per pellet if all the pellets connect to the head. So the best use cases for it is peeling for your supports, countering dive, or whether there's a Black Panther or a magic in your backline and you need a quick way to get rid of them, using the shotgun is a great option. It also is a great tank buster versus characters like Groot, Venom, Captain America, and pretty much every single tank in the entire roster. And also, if timed correctly, if a Cloak and Dagger is ulting and they happen to come straight at you, you can one-tap them with the Punisher shotgun, which is absolutely insane. Although sometimes it might miss because the hitbox with it is a little bit wonky, but it can be done. Now let's talk about one of his abilities, which is the Culling Turret. It does 12.6 damage per bullet at 12.5 rounds a second, and there is splash damage with 12.6 splash radius at 3 meteors. Accuracy ramps up with time, so max at 20 shots. And while active, you're CC immune, so you can use this as kind of like an iframe to a lot of the ultimate abilities in the game. Take for example Jeff ultimate or even Emma Frost ultimate. If you can press it in time, well then you're not going to be sent to the Shadow Realm. So a majority of the time, if you're on Convergence or Convoy maps and you're on the defending side, you'll usually set up the turret to, inflict a ton of damage and rapidly build up your ult. That's like the main idea of the turret, to build your ult up as fast as you can. But you can also use it for other reasons like anti-flank or anti-dive, and being able to control a ton of space or help your tanks out. Especially in the current meta, turret is very annoying, especially paired with Doctor Strange's portals. You can literally delete enemy backlines at the beginning of the match. Now let's talk about the Scourge grenade. This is an essential utility for escaping or just blocking line of sight. Basically what it does is it blocks enemies' vision in a 5 meter radius. On hit, it deals 45 damage if you hit them directly, and the recoil jump, it leaps Punisher backwards 9 meters. The cooldown is 8 seconds. Typically, you want to use it when your turret breaks. You instantly right click or use whatever button it is bound to, so that you're not instantly obliterated when you come off of your turret. You can also use it to break sightlines or delay pushes. It's a very useful ability that's flexible in a ton of different scenarios, so I really recommend using it whenever you can. Whether it's shooting at your feet or shooting it at the enemy, both ways are super good to use. Now let's talk a little bit about the mobility, which is the Vantage connection, otherwise known as the Zipline. So while on the Zipline, you move at 25 meters a second, so it's pretty good. It has a 20-second cooldown, and the momentum carries after jump off. So it's fantastic for rotations, elevations, escapes, or surprise angles. I always recommend at the beginning of a match, especially again if you're on the defending side, to set up ziplines in the quote-unquote preparation phase so you have abilities to reposition quickly whenever you need to. Now let's talk about his passive Warrior's Gaze, or what I like to call wall hacks. Basically what it lets you do is you get to track enemies through walls within 30 meters for 3 seconds after sight loss. It works through your smoke or your Scourge grenade, so using that in combination is a great idea. Basically this helps you with callouts, flanks, or finishing low HP targets. Again, it's a great synergy with the smoke grenade and the turret for vision control, and it's useful for a lot of different scenarios. You can see if someone's trying to go for a flank, if you just caught a glimpse of them, and if enemies are looking to reposition, it's also a great tool. Also, it's essentially free wall hacks, so why wouldn't you like it, I guess? Now let's talk about his ultimate ability, which is the Final Judgment. The biggest two things to know is that, he does a ton of damage, and he also has missiles. That's, pretty cool. It lasts for 10 seconds, and they reduce the movement slow. Something to keep note of is that he's CC immune during ultimate or crowd control immune, so he cannot be slept, frozen, seduced, anything like that. It's very good to counter a lot of the ultimates in this game. Take for example Emma Frost's ultimate. When Emma Frost uses her psionic seduction, you can easily pop Final Judgment and delete her while she's ulting. But do be warned, there might be a man with a meatball staring at you. Now let's talk about his new team up with Black Widow, which is Operation Microchip. So Punisher is the anchor of this team up, so he gets a bonus which is plus 5% damage and plus 25 HP, meaning a total of 300, which is absolutely insane. Now, you don't need to have a Widowmaker on your team for these effects to be applied. It's kind of like by default, which is pretty cool. And if you are playing with a Widowmaker, you could easily focus fire on targets and easily delete players. Now that you got a general understanding of how his kit works, all the damage numbers, what to know, what to be aware of, let's actually talk about his playstyle. Now let's talk about the Punisher's playstyle and how to maximize the Punisher post-buff. So you have to think about like a role perspective. He's a mid-range DPS and a poke specialist. Punisher excels as a lane-controlling and mid-range damage dealer who thrives on sustained fire rather than burst eliminations. His job isn't to blink enemies out of existence in one shot, it's to apply constant oppressive pressure that softens up targets, denies space, and wears down enemy lines. He thrives in prolonged duels where his upgraded magazine, improved accuracy, and elevated DPS let him outlast and outgun most opponents. Now when it comes to playing the Punisher, you want to be looking to be playing in the 20 to 30 meter range. The 20 to 30 meter window is his power band. Inside 20 meters, Punisher becomes truly lethal, able to one-clip even high HP heroes with sustained fire. His accuracy stays tight enough to shred, and his DPS is near peak thanks to minimal damage falloff. At 30 meters, he still performs well, especially with the accuracy buff and larger magazine. But damage falloff starts to reduce his time to kill slightly. Go beyond 40 meters and becomes more of a harassment tool than a real finishing tool. Your goal should always be to control space within that 20 to 30 meter pocket, leveraging cover and angles to keep yourself safe while dishing out non-stop pressure. So when it comes to his strengths, Punisher isn't about flashy plays, he's about efficiency. His value grows the longer a fight drags on. The bigger mag lets you keep shooting while others reload. The tighter spread means more bullets connect, and the higher damage means every second you're alive is another second you're deleting enemy HP bars. If you combine that with his Culling Turret, he becomes a zoning powerhouse. He creates danger zones on the map where enemies either disengage or commit, and if they commit, they pay for it rather quickly. So in terms of mobility, while Punisher doesn't have a blink escape or vertical jumps, his Vantage, Connection Zipline, and Scourge Grenade Recoil give him solid repositioning tools. The Ziplines let him reach high ground, rotate lanes, or disengage from flanks, while the Smoke Grenade allows for quick direction changes, soft resets, or creative gateways. Together, these tools offer flexibility that most mid-range DPS don't get, especially when you combine them intelligently, for example, ziplining in with momentum, popping smoke mid-air, and bouncing back out for a mid-fight reset. These are all tools that the Punisher has that some of these other duelists in the game kind of lack. So a lot of people come to me with the same exact question. How exactly do you position when you're playing a hero like Punisher? These are the things you want to be keeping in mind. Punisher's turret alone makes him a natural off-angler. Placing it on a flank or off to the side of the fight splits the enemy's attention, giving your team a second angle of pressure and making it harder for enemies to find a safe space. Now, you don't want a necessary frontline, but you also don't want to hang back like a sniper. You always want to be playing from sides, although you can sit behind your shield tanks, that's also fine, and you want to anchor space and force the enemy to react to your positioning. Use your ziplines to relocate from pressure and your smoke to deny dive targets or reset after your turret breaks. But with the current meta, you're kind of sitting behind your shield tanks. Of course, that's what you should be doing, but that's kind of how it's going. For the most part, you could be playing in between your healers and your tanks, for example, so middle of the pack, I would say, so that you can swap between weapons when necessary, and then of course ziplining back once you have your turret to have the best possible angle for it. Let's talk a little bit more about the buffs. So the 47% increase in magazine damage and 11% boost to DPS fundamentally change what Punisher brings to a fight. He's no longer just a chip damage hero, he can now end fights on his own if ignored. This isn't just about theoretical stats, it's about practical results. With a 40 round mag, tighter accuracy, and higher bullet damage, he's now one of the most consistent damage dealers in the entire game. In teamfights, that means more uptime, fewer reloads, and the ability to suppress or finish enemies before they get away or pop cooldowns. So here's our final thoughts on his playstyle. Punisher is the kind of hero that rewards discipline and tracking over flashiness. If you can keep enemies in your sights, hold strong angles, and maintain pressure, you'll consistently generate value, even if you're not landing perfect headshots. And with all the tools at your disposal, shotgun bursts, turret zoning, grenade resets, and consistent primary fire, you can adapt nearly to any situation. Just remember, stay in range, control the angles, keep the pressure high, and your bullets will handle the rest. Now let's talk about some of the quick hard counters to Punisher. Well, the first one has to be Magneto. He's quite literally the #1 disruptor of Punisher's ult and his turret, so that's something to keep in mind. Now you could throw in some flankers or dive duelists if you really wanted to, although sometimes it's hit or miss. A character like Psylocke or even Black Panther can counter him, although all he has to do is whip out his shotgun and one-tap you, but in theory, they can counter him. Now, I'm gonna throw Invisible Woman into the counter list because if the Punisher is outside of Invisible Woman's ultimate while the Punisher's ulting, yes, that is a counter. But the second the Punisher gets a brain and decides to hold W and enters her invisible ultimate, well then that's a different story if you get the picture. Following that, we have some slight soft counters or skill-based threats. First one is Luna Snow. Luna Snow receives some buff and she does insane amount of damage with her primary fire. She can freeze him, and her ultimate does extremely well against Punisher's ultimate. That is, of course, if the Punisher isn't getting damage boosted by another Luna Snow or Rocket ultimate, but for the most part, Luna Snow flat out, just on her own, does in fact counter Punisher's ultimate. Following that, a character like Iron Fist can be pretty good at dealing with, Punisher with his hyper mobility, and if he does close the gap, Punisher loses a fight without a perfect shotgun blast. So if the Iron Fist in theory can weave around Punisher, then he should be able to counter him. The other two counters kind of go hand in hand of what they do, and that's Hela and Hawkeye. Basically, 2 shots for Hela to Punisher's head, and Punisher's out of the fight. One very well placed Hawkeye arrow, and Punisher again is out of the fight. They're very good at that mid to long range combat against Punisher, where Punisher kind of lacks in comparison at long range. Hela and Hawkeye can punish that, but if they do get within that sweet window of 20 to 30 meters, well then it's a different story. But besides that, that's really the counters, besides just breaking line of sight and playing smart around Punisher. But regardless, hopefully you found this video helpful in any way, shape, or form, and if you did, be sure to hit that like button. Greatly helps out the channel and the video, and make sure to subscribe if you're new. At 20,000 subscribers, we're doing a giveaway, so make sure to join in. But regardless, I hope you have a great and safe day, and I'll catch you in the next one.